Welcome back to the Transform Your Mind to Transform Your Life radio, podcast, and television show. I'm your host, Life Coach Brenda Young, and sitting in the guest chair today is Dr. Mindy Pelz, best-selling author, renowned authority on fasting, and podcast host. And today we're going to be talking about intermittent fasting. Does it work for women? Welcome, Dr. Mindy.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I love the way you started that. It's like I wanted to answer the question right away. I was like, oh, wait, that wasn't a question.
Yes. Tantalizing. Yep.
Yes,
Because
I love
your
it.
book, Fast Like a Girl, and I know from our listening to you on other podcasts that, that's basically what your focus is. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
all right, it's kind of a rhetorical question. Yes, it does, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, we wouldn't be asking the question,
Right.
probably if it wasn't that women should be fasting and there's
Fasting,
a
right?
way. Yeah,
Exactly. It's like when
yeah.
the lawyers feed you a question, they have an answer that they're looking for. So yes, okay, all right.
Yeah, it was a softball question for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Well, let me give you guys a brief bio of Dr. Mindy. Commonly known as the Reset Doc, Dr. Mindy Pelz is a renowned holistic health expert who is on a mission to start a women's health revolution. Teaching her signature 5-step approach, Dr. Mindy has empowered hundreds of thousands of people around the world to harness their body's own healing ability through fasting, diet variation, detoxing chemicals from the body, stress management, and lifestyle changes as keys to achieving optimum health and slowing down the aging process. Her private coaching group, the Reset Academy, teaches women how to sync a fasting lifestyle with their hormones. She's the author of several best-selling books, including the newly released Fast Like a Girl, The Menopause Reset, The Reset Factor, and The Reset Kitchen. Her members-only Facebook group, the Resetter Collaborative, includes over 30,000 active members. Dr. Mindy's podcast, The Resetter Podcast, is ranked within Apple's top 40 category in the US Science Podcast. All right, so here is the moment that we dive right in. So let me give you guys a background on how this interview came about. I listened to Dr. Mindy on the Drew Pruitt podcast, and the information that she provided was so mind-blowing because my husband is doing intermittent fasting. I've been trying it for a while. I have had several guests come on and talked about intermittent fasting and keto and all that. And the information that she gave was so mind-blowing, different from anything I've ever heard. And I just knew that her way works. So I said, you know what? I have some expanded questions from that interview that she had on the Drew Pruitt podcast. And I also wanted to share it with you guys. So I sent an invitation, she accepted, and now you can hear this amazing conversation. So to start off, Dr. Mindy, you are a renowned holistic health expert. Can you share with our audience what exactly is intermittent fasting and what our body does in ketosis?
Yeah, it's such a good place to start the conversation. And so thank you for asking that, because intermittent fasting has become this buzzword that, so many of us throw around. But I could put a room full of 100 people that are intermittent fasting and they're all doing it different, which is great. And that's the whole premise of what I teach. So here's the best way we can look at fasting. We have to remember that we have two energy systems. So when you're trying to get energy to go about your day, when you're trying to get mental energy, you want energy to heal. We have a tendency, a lot of the conversation in the health world has been around quality of food and what to eat and what foods are going to be the best for you. And so there's been a lot of food conversation, but what we don't realize is that's only one of our energy systems. That when glucose goes high, yes, glucose in a balanced way can really help support cellular healing, especially if you're eating the right foods. but it's only 50% of the conversation, because this other energy source is what we have come to know as the ketogenic energy source. Now, the ketogenic energy source, I like to lovingly call it the fat burning system, because the only way you can make ketones is by burning fat. So hallelujah, because we can actually start to see that we can make ketones from and lose weight at the same time. And then those ketones, what they'll do is they'll go up into the brain and they start to supercharge your brain. They repair neurons. They kill hunger. They repair any mitochondria throughout your body. So it's this healing state that we put ourselves in. So when you ask, what is intermittent fasting? It is, you are tapping into the ketogenic, fat burning, healing energy system. And why so many people are crazy about it, if I mean that in a positive, is because most of us, until we try fasting, we've never experienced the power that our body can have in this, using this energy state as fuel.
Okay. Yeah. So a couple of things that I learned from your conversation before when I listened to you is that you had this amazing story. You talked about this guy that came to you, and you said he was almost close to 300 pounds. And he said, if I don't lose weight, I'm going to die. And he was drinking lots of soda. And all you did was tell him that he can eat all the junk he wants in a window. Now, that's what blows my mind. And I do it now.
Crazy.
I mean, listen, that was such a great story. So yeah, you said that all you had him do was eat all the junk he wants in a certain window and fast for the other times. And he started losing, I think you said he lost 10 pounds the first month. And then the second month, you had him take the soda that he was drinking and just drink it outside the home. And don't drink anything in the home. And then he lost another 20 pounds. And in the end, he lost like 40 pounds in 3 months. And that's just basically by eating all you want in a certain window. Now, the reason that I've dabbled in intermittent fasting is because my husband, we've been married now for 16 years. And from the time I met him, he was always saying, I got to lose 30 pounds. I got to lose 30 pounds. I got to lose weight, whatever. And it wasn't working for him because he's not disciplined to do the things that he needs to do. But then he learned about this intermittent fasting and he's lost 40 pounds.
Yes. I love it.
And the way he does it, he drinks coffee while he's at work and he doesn't eat until he comes home in the afternoon. So, but when he comes home in the afternoon, he eats all this junk. And I'm sitting here and I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, why are you eating chips? Why all of a sudden you eating chocolate? But he figured out the same thing you're told, you're sharing, is that when your window of eating, you can eat any kinds of junk. So let's talk about that, this window and this thing, because it's fascinating to me.
Yeah. So, oh my God, there's so much to unpack there, but thank you tell your husband, congratulations. That's amazing. And let me back up one step about where I started to see fasting as this incredible tool, not just for weight loss, but also for healing. And it kind of bypasses this food addicted society that we have. It bypasses the horrible food that is coming into the supermarkets from the big food movement. So during the pandemic, I was asked to speak to a group of high school teachers in South Carolina, and they were about to go back to school at that point. They thought they were going to go back into the classroom, and they were really nervous about what they could do for their immune system. So their principal actually reached out to me and asked if I would come and teach a course on immunity. And so I did. I put together this beautiful PowerPoint. I come from a family of teachers, so the opportunity to teach was just really, near and dear to my heart. And I wanted to help these incredible teachers. And I get through this long presentation on what to eat and what not to eat. And when we get done at the end of the presentation, one man raises his hand and he says, I love everything you're saying, but if you want me to not to make a better choice around my peanut butter that has better oils in it, that is a $7 difference in the jar of peanut butter if I'm going to choose the healthier oil version of that jar. And he's like, I don't have that $7. I can't afford that kind of money for food. Then another teacher got up and said, you know what? I get up at 4 a.m. I get to my classroom. I don't have a lunch break. When I get done at the end of the day, then I just go through McDonald's drive-through because it's the easiest thing. I don't have time to prepare food. And so I realized in that moment that we have to find a different path for improving metabolic health. So if you look at the metabolic health of Americans right now, only 12% of Americans are metabolically fit. And yet we have got so many chemicals in our food. We've got food that has been programmed to make us addicted. And so we know we're not supposed to eat it, but we eat it anyways because that's the point of addiction, is that you do it even though you know that it's harmful for you. And so when I between that and just looking at how to change people's food behaviors, I realized that fasting actually was the hero of the day, because what the research shows is that one of the most famous studies ever done is done on the 16-8 style of fasting, where for 16 hours you fast, 8 hours you eat. Right. And so if you do that, you are metabolically immune from the poor Western diet. And so if you stop and you think about that, big food doesn't want us, it's making sure that the food we eat keeps us addicted, and how are we going to overcome that quality of food, especially when it's cheaper, it's easier and people have more access to it. So I started using that 16-8 study and really diving into teaching people the art of fasting. I like the 16-hour fast. I just broke my fast before I came on, and it was about 20 hours for me. But the reason I want to highlight this is that it's a workaround. It's a workaround the food addiction. It's a workaround the busy lifestyle. You can take the CEO of a big company. You could take somebody who can only afford McDonald's. You can take somebody who, like the guy I spoke about, who's food addicted, and you can improve their metabolic health if you just teach them to fast. And that's what your husband did, which is so cool.
Yeah. That's what he did. So that's amazing. So I'm doing it now, and I'm like eating ice cream.
Is it working? She's speechless.
I don't feel guilty anymore because I know I got that 8-hour window and I can eat anything, as you say, and then I fast for 16 hours. So, all right. So basically with the story is, so what you're saying is, even though you kind of like moved him into a healthier habit, but what I think what you're saying is, if like when we go to McDonald's, the burger's like 1,000 calories. So when we're eating all the food that we want, or whatever food that we want for that 8 hours, it doesn't get us fat? That's really a good question.
Yeah, it's great question. So there's two things that will happen is one, what you're doing if you eat that meal that's, we'll just say fast food. So we don't nail any of the fast food restaurants, but you're eating that fast food and you're eating it in a confined period. During that time, when you're eating that fast food, I'm not negating that your blood sugar's going up, your inflammatory markers are going up, your cholesterol's going up. Like, that is all still going to happen. And I'm not advocating for that style of food, but so many people are addicted to it that I want to point out that all of those harmful lab findings that we see with poor metabolic health go up. But here's the catch. If you give yourself 16 hours to rest after you've eaten that toxic food, all those markers come back down. Fasting insulin comes down, glucose comes down, CRP, cholesterol, it all comes back down because you gave your body a chance to recover from the toxicity of that food. So you're not going to see the long-term damage that we're seeing from the Western diet.
Mm.
So now what the part of the story that I haven't really told very many people, because I just talked to the man a couple of weeks ago, is that he's completely off soda now. His whole food changes, food cravings have changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So stop and think about that for a moment. In July of last year, he came to me and said, help me, I need to save my life because I'm in such poor metabolic health. And when I asked him what was the biggest hurdle, he said food addiction. So I knew in that moment, I couldn't change food. So I changed when he ate, not what he ate. And he and I kept working those principles for 6 months. And in that 6 months, he's changed his microbiome. He's stabilized his blood sugar. All those metabolic markers are getting a rest so they can come back down. And 2 weeks ago, he told me he's completely off of soda and he has completely changed the way that he eats. He had buffalo wings was the other thing. He's like, yeah, I don't really crave them anymore. And that is because he stuck with the principles and then he started to make better food choices, as opposed to what do? I'm going to go on a diet. I'm going to change my food. And then we white knuckle it. Yes. I'm saying, let's change when you eat first. And if you do that long enough, I promise you, your body will then tell you, hey, how about we change what we eat now?
Yeah, it's true. It's just like when you're starting eating well and you go back to eating nasty food, then you don't want that nasty food anymore.
That's right. And
even
that
the sweet things, right? Yeah.
So it's like we have the dieting culture backwards. You know, we're all debating like vegan, carnivore, keto, Weight Watchers. Like, I'm not opposed to all of those. I'm just saying pair it with some fasting, because if you start with changing when you eat, the what you eat becomes effortless. And that's what people are not experiencing. And that's where we went completely wrong in the weight loss culture.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's circle back there. And I also found out, like, when somebody gets on intermittent fasting, I'm pretty sure, I mean, I'm pulling out numbers. You can correct me, but let's say 50% of people go on a fasting because they want to lose weight, but another 50% of them, maybe their doctor or their nutritionist, have told them that maybe it can reverse diabetes or it can reverse a couple of things. Because I heard you talk about some chronic illnesses that fasting can cure. You want to touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, so what's really interesting is that I've been teaching fasting to the world for about 6 or 7 years now. And on my YouTube channels where I started teaching it. And we got so many comments back that it blew my mind to see that there were some very specific conditions that fasting seemed to help a lot with. And I put it all in the book and the protocols that we used. But there's a couple here: the weight loss resistance, insulin resistance. Absolutely. I mean, if you struggle to lose weight, you're tired of pounding your head against the window or the plate, let's call it the plate, to try to find the right diet for you and lose weight, I really recommend you try fasting. So that was one of them. Any autoimmune condition, I've seen incredible changes to autoimmunity, and 80% of autoimmune conditions happen to women. So that's why Fast Like a Girl is so important for women to understand how to use fasting for themselves. So there was that. Then we've seen diabetes, type 1 and type 2. I mean, type 1's an autoimmune condition, but type 2, Jason Fung taught us that. We're seeing that as well. Chronic pain totally obliterates chronic pain. It'll go away. Mood disorders reboots the whole dopamine system. It can help with it can upregulate GABA, so your anxiety will change. I mean, menopause symptoms, you name it, like we've been able to see some consistent change, because this is how your body wants you to take care of it. You just never got you never got the memo. Nobody ever told you, oh, it's when I eat, not what I eat.
Yeah, that's amazing. As you were talking, I remember when I read Malcolm X's book years ago, 5 years ago or more, and he talked about eating one meal a day at 3 o'clock, and he would have coffee the rest of the time. And he told you about why eating one meal a day is good for you. Rest your stomach, But people just didn't, they probably can eat the one meal a day, but they can do the fasting for 16 and eat as much as they want and ate. But all right, so I don't know if intermittent fasting works for me. I was supposed to get on the scale before I talked to you, but I forgot. But I've been dabbling in intermittent fasting for a while. I saw how it's been working for my husband, and I started trying to do it. But one of the things that you blew me away in your conversation with Drew is that you talked about the foods that take you out of ketosis. And you said, in fact, I ordered a blood test machine. I haven't gotten it yet.
Excellent.
But you talked about that before you eat a food, then you test your blood sugar 5 minutes after to see if it's taking you out of ketosis. And one of the things that I used to do that thought that I was doing really well with is I would drink apple cider vinegar and honey every morning. And then I recognized, oh, I used to take 2 tablespoons of honey, and then I cut it down to 1, because it's all that sugar, right? And I thought that I was doing something, and I listened to you, and I thought, I am eating sugar. I am obviously not intermittent fasting. So a couple of questions I want to have here. We can bundle them then. Well, no, we'll leave the other one after because you're talking about women and hormones. So we'll leave that for another time. Another question. But for now, so let's say that you are trying to fast for 16 hours. What can you eat? Is it just water and coffee or
in the fasted state? Yeah, in the fasted state. A great question. Okay, so the most common question we get, because most people will fast in the morning, is what about my coffee? And I would say that I'm going to give you sort of the general ideas of what works, and then we'll give you a formula on how you can test it on yourself. But generally, coffee works for most people. It is how many of us that fast get through our fasting window. We get up in the morning, we have our coffee, and it keeps us going. And actually, there's great science showing that coffee stimulates autophagy, which is one of the mechanisms we're trying to trigger with fasting. So now what you put in that coffee really matters. So if you're putting coffee mate in it, or a creamer that's very toxic, or you're putting sugar in it, you're probably going to pull yourself out of it. In fact, that's not even a probably, you will pull yourself out of a fasted state. So what can you put in it? Cream, a heavy cream typically works for people. MCT oil. MCT oil will actually kick up your ketone production, so it'll turn off the hunger signals. So I put a little scoop of MCT oil in it. And you could do butter if you want to do. The buttered coffee was really popular for a while.
Right.
Yeah, you could do ghee if you want.
Right.
Yeah, but like a fat bomb, that would be fine. So that's kind of the general, but I wouldn't do non-fat milk. It's too high on the glycemic index. You need some fat to slow that spiking of the blood sugar down. And I wouldn't do coffee mate. I wouldn't do creamers. I wouldn't do oat milk or almond milk. Those are really popular milks right now, and they tend to spike the blood sugar.
Really? That's good information. Right.
Yeah. So cow's milk, what I do is cow's milk with raw, because I can get raw here in California. So it'll have enzymes and probiotics in it, which help regulate the blood sugar. And I do MCT oil so that I can kick up ketone production. And, if you're listening to that and you're like, but I love my cup of coffee and that sounds horrible. You slowly make changes, and over time it gets easier.
Okay, so what else can you eat? What else can you? Okay, so you you said something about these fat bombs. Can you talk about that for a minute? Yeah. If you're hungry, maybe let's say 12 hours into it, what are some of the things that you can eat that's high, and you call them fat bombs? What are some fat bombs?
So some fat bomb, and actually, let me just make sure. So I'll go through the other things you can drink, and then let me do fat bombs. Okay. So teas are fine. I always encourage they're organic. You can put, same rules apply. What you put in it matters. Mineral water is great in your fasting window. What's a real sneaky one, or like diet drinks, because NutraSweet can start to stimulate your appetite and make it more difficult for you to fast. It can also raise your blood sugar, even though it's a non, it's supposedly a sugar-free substitute. So just want to point that out. Okay, fat bomb. What's really interesting about a fat bomb, and I really tried to emphasize this in the book, is that there is great research showing that a fasted snack is actually allows us to go into longer fasts, but not feel deprived and not feel hungry. And it's there, I wrote about it in the book. It's all over the book, the fasted snack and the research on it. But what I found is it's so interesting because for the new faster, it can be like a miracle. And here's what a fasted snack looks like. It could be an avocado. It could be a half of avocado. It could be a scoop of nut butter. It could be my favorite fasted snack or keto cups. I have no affiliation with the company, but keto cups, they're just pure cacao, which won't spike your blood sugar, mixed with some MCT oil. To me, they taste a little bit like a Reese's peanut butter cup, a little bit.
Nice.
But I pop those in my mouth all the time. So anything that's pure fat and doesn't spike your blood sugar will keep you in a fasted state.
That's beautiful. You also said something about bone broth, and I just ordered some.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah. So bone broth also works to keep you in a fasted state. And it also has glycine in it, and glycine will start to repair the inner lining of your gut. So nice. I actually, when I go to reintroduce my back into food, especially after longer fasts, I like to do a couple cups of bone broth. It really is great for gut repair.
Okay. So that's awesome. All right. So that was a question I had. Now, can you comment on my apple cider vinegar and honey? That obviously was the wrong drink, right?
Well, what's so interesting is I wanted to comment as you were talking. I'm like, okay, well, let's see if she figured it out. So apple cider vinegar is great. It definitely will balance your blood sugar. So if you don't mind the taste of it, and it does well on your stomach, it's great in your fasted window. Put it in some water and drink it throughout the fasted window would be a really cool thing. I don't talk about it a lot because I personally don't like it. So everybody asks me about it and they're like, why don't you talk about apple cider vinegar? I'm like, it's a personal thing. So, but then once you put honey in it, now you spike your blood sugar. So think of it like this. You're trying to switch yourself over into this fat burning energy system. And anything that spikes your blood sugar switches you back into the sugar burner system. So
I did that for years.
Honey's going to switch you back. So yeah, sorry.
But yeah, I'm glad you said that you can just put it in water and just drink it by itself, right? Yes. And the only reason I stopped, to be quite honest, is that I heard that apple cider vinegar messes with the enamel of your tooth. So I didn't even stop when I heard about, I didn't stop when I heard about intermittent fasting. I just stopped because of the apple cider vinegar of itself. But now that I'm in the intermittent fasting space, I recognize, actually, when I listen to you and you're talking about foods that kick you out of ketosis, the light bulb went on immediately that that honey and I was doing really well. I would get up in the morning, have my apple cider vinegar and honey, and I would go, walking for a 5K, and I'm thinking I was doing all this stuff and I was not doing anything.
Oh my gosh.
All right. So now let's talk about women. One of the things, and I didn't get much of it, you talked about women and hormones and in your 28-day cycle and how it affects or people that are in menopause. So can you touch on that briefly? So maybe we can ask the question now. Does intermittent fasting work for women? Does the hormones mess up the fasting? And I've had the last nutritionist that I had on the show, when I told her about my husband fasting, and she says, yes, it usually works for men. It doesn't work so much in women. So yeah, let's have that conversation.
Yeah. So here's what we need to know about the difference between men and women. And when we look at our hormones, our hormones play out differently for us. So let's start with men. Men's number one hormone is testosterone. Most people know that. But what's interesting is testosterone goes up into the brain and converts into estrogen. So you'll hear a lot of people say, well, men have estrogen too. They do, but it starts with testosterone and then it converts up into the brain. When a man fasts, the research shows that he can improve his testosterone levels by 1,300% just by a 15-hour fast. Wow. And he can improve his testosterone levels by 2,000% in a 24-hour fast. So men rock fasting. In fact, if you're married to a man and you go into a fast together, I see this over and over and over again, where all of a sudden the man's like, I lost 30 pounds in like 3 weeks. And the wife is like, I lost a pound. And there's a hormonal
It's that
reason.
bad, right? Wow.
Yeah, it's literally, I mean, I feel like I could be like a counselor for couples, it's like, I'm sorry. So men, you rock fasting. Women, we have 3 hormones we have to take into consideration: estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So, and estrogen and progesterone play by vastly different rules. Estrogen loves when you keep glucose down. Estrogen is very tolerant of cortisol. So if you want to go into a longer fast where glucose goes down, insulin goes down, and cortisol goes up, because cortisol will go up in a fast, very much like exercise increases cortisol. Estrogen's going to love that. You want to clean up your estrogen system? That's great. Progesterone is completely the opposite way. In fact, I always say that progesterone and estrogen are like twin sisters. They look the same. We call them sex hormones, but they have massively different personalities. And so when we look at what progesterone wants, she wants you to bring glucose up. So if you're fasting and you're keeping glucose down, you're going to tank progesterone. Progesterone also wants you to keep cortisol low. So it's the complete inverse of estrogen.
Right. Okay.
So this is what I discovered in my own tryptophan, in my own fasting adventures in my early 40s, is that I loved fasting so much that I just did it all the time. And before I knew it, I had completely lost my cycle. My hair was starting to fall out. I wasn't sleeping. And I was anxious all the time. And I was walking around going, what happened to me? Why did this occur? And that's when I realized I wasn't minding progesterone. So
did you lose weight?
I had lost weight. Like I had great mental clarity. I had all the wonderful things. I was just anxious. My hair was falling out. I wasn't sleeping.
You lost your cycle.
And I lost my cycle, which really wasn't that fun. So just saying. So I started to look at those hormones and go, what is it that needs, what are the behavior? And when you look at a woman who has a cycle, the front half of her cycle is when estrogen is in her glory. So fasting works great. The back half of her cycle is when progesterone's in her glory. So no fasting is great. And there's more nuance to that I explain in the book, but that's a general idea. And so one of the things that really like propelled me to write this book was that so the word got out into the world that women shouldn't fast.
Right.
And it's like, yes, we should not fast when progesterone is coming in, which is the week before our period. But the rest of the time, fasting rocks for us.
Right. Okay. All right. And what about the menopausal people? How is that work?
So menopausal women,
Like
you know what? Here's what I say to the menopausal women is like, you're crazy if you're not fasting. And let me tell you why. Estrogen is going down in menopause. Right. So as estrogen goes down, you become more insulin resistant. So the diet that you ate at 35 that kept you slim and feeling great is not going to work for you at 45 because you've got to change to the loss of estrogen. So fasting, incredible. Just go into as many fasts. In fact, I really believe women in that have been all the way through menopause should actually go into longer fasts, like 3-day fasts. It's a beautiful way to clean up that and balance that estrogen. But you still have progesterone. She didn't go away. She did go away. She's just a little less. And so with her, you just are going to need to make sure that you step out of fasting and you step out of low carb or keto at least once a week, maybe a couple of times a week, depending on how low your progesterone is. So in the book, I call it hormone feasting foods. And they are the foods that you can feed progesterone to be able to give her what the nutrients she needs to be able to be there to help you. So, and so that's sort of the general concepts for menopausal women that I think are helpful.
Yes. So, So that's awesome. Wow, we went full circle in all the questions that I had. Because yeah, on the I wasn't able to understand that part a little better. So um okay, so we've talked about the foods that take us out of ketosis. We've talked about the hormones. We talked about how intermittent fasting is good not only for losing weight, but to take down the autoimmune diseases and things like that. So I guess now we can talk about your book, Fast Like a Girl. Why did you call it that if girls have all this hormonal stuff? So tell us, what do you wanted to people to walk away with after reading your book, and why did you write it?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's a great question. And I like how you started this. Why did you call it that? So, again, the catalyst for writing it was that what I was seeing in my clinic, what I was seeing on my YouTube channel where I teach fasting, and we have like 1.5 million people join the channel every month, and they were leaving their comments, was a very specific formula of fasting that took 6 different fasting types or lengths and 2 different food styles and mapped it to a woman's hormones. And I was watching women hormonally come back into balance. It started, I was N01. It was first started with me. And I fixed my hormonal system using these 6 different length fasts with these 2 food styles and mapping them to my hormones or to my menstrual cycle in my mid 40s. So I knew it worked for me. Then I taught my patients and I saw it work for them. And then I taught millions of other women across the world. And I knew that I was on to something once I saw that. So it's really interesting because right now we're getting so many incredible reviews on the book, and everybody's like, it works. It works. And in my head, I'm like,
because we need it more than the men.
Yeah, we need it more, and we needed a formula. And I just happened to crack the code of that formula. So that was sort of the meaning behind, we got to get this in print so that every woman has it. Now, the title, I think there's a lot in the title that I don't want women to lose, because I've had a lot of women say to me, well, I'm not a girl. Well, when there's actually a feminist philosopher who wrote an essay back in the 1980s about why the concept of running like a girl or throwing like a girl is actually an accurate statement. And the reason that it's accurate is because when you look at the kinesiology or the mechanics of what it takes to throw a ball, our bodies are built differently than men. So we aren't going to throw a ball like a man, because our hip ratio is different. Our arm length is different. Our muscle balance is different. Same thing with running like a girl. So that's the idea, is that fasting's the same way. Don't do it like your husband. Don't do it like your brother, your father, your best friend. Do it like your girl design, the design of your feminine body.
I like that. Right. Okay.
So that was kind of the meaning behind that. And then, as I do in my YouTube videos, I really wanted to make sure that there was some application of how you do this. I don't know about you, but when I get listen to podcasts, or I listen to books or read books, and you get all fired up, and then you don't know what to do. Like, how do I do that? There's nothing more frustrating. So what I did in the book is I broke it into 3 sections. The first section is the science behind fasting, and the science behind women's hormones. The second section is how we should eat and fast for our cycle. And the third section is actually a plan, a 30-day fasting reset that you can do.
That's beautiful. I like that. Awesome. All right. Well, talk to us about your YouTube channel. You have a Facebook group, you have a podcast. Tell us about your how people can follow you on social media. I've already started following you on Instagram, so I see your videos on Instagram. So let the listening audience know how they can find you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, YouTube is my passion project. So I put out the science and the application of fasting all over YouTube. So that if you're interested in learning more, that's a great place to go. I am on Instagram, and I'm on all
how do they find you on YouTube?
Just everything's my name. Yeah, everything's my name.
Okay. All right.
Except my podcast is called the Resetter Podcast, and we have incredible discussions there with some really brilliant minds. So, and you'll see if you listen to repetitive episodes, I always bring fasting into it and ask people that. So YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, we have a closed a Facebook group that's free, and it's called the Resetter Collaborative on Facebook, and it's a fasting group, has over 60,000 people in it. And there are some really amazing fasting minds in there. So if you want more support, that's a great place. Yeah, we have an academy, have a membership group where people who want assistance from me and my coaching, my team of coaches and fasting warriors, we have a whole supportive group called the Reset Academy. And if you forget all of that, you could go to drmindypelz.com and it's all there.
Okay. All right. drmindypelz.com. All right. Awesome. Well, a transcript of my conversation with Dr. Mindy will be on the show page, which is blog.myhelps.us. And I would have the links to her website, I'm going to link out to, you also have several other books. I love the Menopause Reset, the Reset Factor, the Reset Kitchen. I'll link out to those. I'll link her to her podcast, which is a Resetter podcast. And sometimes you need to, like faith, right? If faith comes by hearing or hearing. So if you are, wanting to lose weight, if you're wanting to improve your health, and you figure that fasting or food or diet and nutrition is the way to go, then listen to Dr. Mindy's podcast. She loves, she's talked several times about her YouTube channel. So you find her on YouTube and listen, and as you listen, you become more encouraged. And because I just heard her one time and I've become more encouraged.
I love it. Oh, that just warms my heart. I love it. Thank you. I mean, it really is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to start a movement of fasters and end metabolic syndrome and chronic disease by using this incredible free tool. So yeah,
it's amazing. And I will tell you that as we say, the other thing I love what you said is so let's say that you need a 16-hour window, right? But so if you want to stop eating dinner at 7, then you know when to start. I'm not going to bother counting, but let's say that you're one of these people that you got to eat at 9 o'clock. Then you just push your start time. You know what I mean? Whatever window works for you, right?
Yeah.
So I actually love that.
Yeah, you just move your window around. Last night I went out to dinner with a friend and we didn't finish eating till 9 o'clock at night. So then I didn't eat again till I just ate right before I popped on with you. So I just moved my window around.
Yeah, and that's another good thing, because people always say, oh, you got to stop eating by 6. People have to stop eating by 7. And a lot of people say, no, I can't stop eating. I don't even get up until 7. Yeah. You know what I mean? So you just move the window. And I love it. And I've been telling people about this, and listen, yes, I have become a believer.
Yay, I love it. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to start a movement.
I have become a believer, and the first week I tried it, I lost 3 pounds. And the second week I didn't lose anything. And I said, you know what? I'm not weighing myself anymore. So I haven't gone back on that scale. So I was going to jump on to tell you whether I lost weight or not, but I think I have.
Email me. Tell me. I want to know. I love it. I love it. I will. The end of one.
Right. Yes. Okay. Well, listen. Thank you so much, Dr. Mindy, for coming on. And this conversation really tickled me, because I heard it. I'm able to be involved in the conversation, and the information is so beautiful for health and wealth and all those different things. You know what I mean? So I definitely wanted to share with my audience and me to learn some more things that I missed listening to you. And I will definitely go and get your book and get some of the details of of the fasting and how you put it together and learning the science and all that kind of stuff.
Beautiful.
So thank you
Great.
very much for
Oh,
coming on the
thank you
show.
for having me. This has been great. I loved it.
All right, guys, listen, thanks again for tuning in to the Transform Your Mind, the Transform Your Life radio podcast and television show. If you're listening to this on iTunes, we'd love for you to rate and review. If you're watching this on YouTube, we'd love for you to subscribe. Head over to Dr. Mindy's YouTube channel and as well as subscribe so you will get all her information as she passes it on. As she learns, she shares, and then you can become like a sponge. Thanks again. Thanks, Dr. Mindy.
Oh,
And
thank you.
until next time, namaste.
Namaste.
Yeah.